Welcome to Bears Royal, guys. Please support me by subscribing and getting me to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. The modern NFL has officially declared war on the Chicago Bears defense, opening an emergency investigation into Jaden Loving after rival coaches submitted frantic late-night film to Park Avenue, claiming his hand combat techniques crossed the line into illegal violence. What you're looking at right now isn't just brutal preseason dominance, it's tape. The league office is scrutinizing frame by frame, searching for customized gear mods and banned club and rip moves that are currently breaking offensive lines. League officials are already threatening catastrophic fines and a potential Game 1 suspension to force him to tone down his lethal physical edge. But inside Halas Hall, the Bears aren't backing down. They've launched an all-out legal counterattack, framing this crackdown as a league-wide conspiracy to suppress pure, undeniable defensive violence. Referees have been given direct orders to keep Loving on a microscopic leash come kickoff, forcing every viewer to ask one critical question. Is the NFL desperately protecting its star quarterbacks, or has Jaden Loving officially broken the modern rulebook? The footage pulsing across executive screens in Manhattan isn't just standard preseason highlights, it is an absolute horror film for offensive coordinators. Frame after frame reveals Jaden Loving collapsing pockets with a terrifying industrial efficiency, driving 300-pound veterans backward until they collapse into their own quarterbacks. In an era where football has been meticulously engineered to protect passers and encourage high-scoring air assaults, Loving plays like a violent relic from an entirely different century. He doesn't just win his reps, he physically dismantles the men tasked with stopping him, leaving behind a trail of stunned linemen, broken protections, and bewildered coaches searching for answers. When he fires off the snap, his first step is so explosive that guards are immediately forced onto their heels, desperate just to survive the initial impact. But it is what happens immediately after contact that has caused panic throughout the front offices of the NFC North. Loving's hands move with the precision of a trained martial artist and the force of a sledgehammer, violently dislodging blocks before opponents can even set their anchor. By the middle of the third preseason series, entire offensive lines were double-teaming him, only to watch him split the gap and plant the quarterback into the turf. That destruction didn't stay on the field for long. Within hours of the final whistle, the quiet phone calls began, linking frustrated coaching staffs across the league in a shared mission to halt Loving's rise before week 1. Multiple rival offensive line coaches began privately assembling high-definition cut-ups, focusing not on the sacks themselves, but on the exact points of contact during Loving's deadliest rushes. They zoomed in on his violent hand swipes, the unnatural leverage he achieved at the point of attack, and the erratic, unnatural momentum with which opposing guard pads were flying upward upon impact. By Monday morning, a joint dossier containing over 20 distinct video clips was formally submitted to the NFL officiating department on Park Avenue. The accompanying letter was damning, explicitly accusing Loving of utilizing unapproved high-leverage strike techniques and illegally altered equipment designed to bypass standard blocking mechanics. The NFL officiating department immediately initiated a priority review, dispatching senior administrators to analyze every snap of Loving's preseason tape. The central question pulling Park Avenue into chaos is whether Loving possesses a rare generational physical force or if he has unlocked an unsanctioned tactical cheat code that threatens player safety. Staff members spent hours breaking down the physics of his rush, comparing his upper body torque against league-standard safety metrics. Outside the league office, the narrative began to spread like wildfire through insider circles, igniting an explosive debate across sports media. Pundits and former players are fiercely divided, arguing over whether the NFL is taking legitimate safety measures or simply manufacturing an emergency investigation to shield its most marketable assets from a defensive force they cannot legally contain. As news of the formal complaints leaked out, the reaction across the league shifted from quiet concern to an outright media circus. Front offices are demanding clear answers before the regular season kicks off, fearing that if Loving's methods are permitted to stand, standard pass blocking as the league knows it will cease to function. Meanwhile, in Chicago, the locker room has taken note of every single headline, recognizing that the rest of the league is already terrified before a single official game has even been played. The stage is officially set for a massive ideological war between modern officiated safety and raw defensive violence, and Jaden Loving sits directly at the center of the storm. At the core of the NFL's emergency investigation is a meticulous breakdown of Jaden Loving's violent, surgically precise pass rush mechanics, techniques rival offensive line coaches claim cross the threshold from standard physical dominance into illegal warfare. When league officials slow the tape down to 60 frames per second, the physical destruction ceases to look like ordinary trench play and begins to resemble an unapproved martial art executed at maximum velocity. Loving's signature move, the lethal club and rip, relies on a violent upward strike directly to the underside of the offensive lineman's pads, delivering a localized shockwave that instantly neutralizes their anchor. Standard pass rush technique dictates leveraging hand placement inside the chest frame, but Loving's strike point deliberately targets the joint space between the shoulder pad and neck roll. By violently jarring the pad frame upward, he forces the blocker's head back, completely breaking their spinal alignment and stripping away their biomechanical power before their feet can even repower. High-definition angles submitted to Park Avenue highlight how Loving utilizes his non-engaged hand to clamp down on the lineman's arm joint, pinning their forearms to their own chest in a move rival coaches argue acts as an illegal hold disguised as a swim move. Beyond the raw hand mechanics, the dossier submitted to the officiating department highlights alarming allegations regarding Loving's game day equipment. Executive reviewers are meticulously inspecting custom modifications to his gear, specifically examining his face mask configuration and localized grip enhancements that may violate equipment safety standards. Rival teams allege that Loving utilizes an unapproved, micro-textured grip compound applied directly to his glove palms and wrist wraps, a specialized coating designed to maximize friction when swatting away an offensive lineman's hands, preventing blockers from grabbing his jersey during leverage battles. Furthermore, complaints zero in on his customized heavy-gauge steel visor and face mask assembly. Competitors claim the unique angular design of his face mask creates an illegal edge during head-to-head contact, effectively acting as a wedge to slip beneath opponent chin straps and force their helmet angles upward during interior bull rushes. The combination of hyper-aggressive physical leverage and customized boundary-pushing hardware has left the league scrambling to determine whether Loving is simply leveraging modern technology and elite strength or using illegal equipment modifications to gain an unfair advantage in the trenches. To build their case against the Bears' explosive interior defender, rival legal teams and front offices are citing specific, heavily guarded clauses within the official NFL rulebook designed to enforce player safety and clean line play. The primary focus centers on Article 3 of the NFL rulebook regarding illegal hand use, which strictly prohibits strikes delivered to the head, neck, or face area of an opponent, as well as prolonged thrusts to the neck region during block-breaking maneuvers. Opposing teams contend that Loving's upward thrusting club move regularly makes contact with the lower rim of the helmet and neck area, violating the spirit of the rule even if initial contact originates on the upper shoulder pad. Additionally, league auditors are scrutinizing Rule 5, Section 4, which governs player equipment and uniforms, explicitly banning foreign substances, non-compliant surface coatings, or altered gear that provides an artificial mechanical advantage. The rulebook explicitly states that any equipment modifying the natural friction coefficients of playing gear or presenting unsafe hard surfaces is subject to immediate confiscation and player disqualification. By invoking these specific rules, rival franchises are mounting a coordinated effort to force Park Avenue into establishing a binding legal precedent before Week 1 arrives. If the NFL officiating department rules that Loving's hand-combat mechanics and modified equipment setup violate Rule 12's unnecessary roughness and illegal strike guidelines, it will effectively neuter his primary weapons, forcing him to completely redesign his pass rush arsenal on short notice. Conversely, if the league determines his techniques fall within acceptable physical boundaries, it risks opening the floodgates for interior defensive linemen league-wide to adopt similarly violent, low-leverage tactics. As league lawyers and technical experts pore over every millimeter of Loving's gear and every frame of his preseason film, the entire league remains frozen, waiting to see whether the rulebook will be weaponized to slow down Chicago's newest defensive force or if Loving's terrifying edge will be declared officially unstoppable. The pushback from Park Avenue was swift, absolute, and designed to send a chilling message across all 32 franchises before the regular season even kicked off. Inside the league office, the officiating department and the competition committee convened an emergency task force specifically to address the Jaden Loving dossier. Senior vice presidents of football operations reviewed the tape with an unprecedented level of urgency, recognizing that allowing a rookie defender to redefine physical boundaries through sheer violence would completely dismantle the league's multi-billion-dollar emphasis on quarterback safety and offensive output. By Tuesday afternoon, official league memos were drafted and dispatched directly to Halas Hall, issuing a formal warning that Loving was being placed under active surveillance by league officials. The letter made it explicitly clear that any continuation of his high-thrust pad contact or unapproved grip tactics during live gameplay would result in immediate on-field flag penalties, severe monetary fines escalating into six figures, and potential administrative suspensions that could bench him for the Bears' highly anticipated Week 1 matchup. To justify such extreme pre-game interventions, league officials are leaning heavily on dark historical precedents where single, terrifyingly dominant defenders forced the NFL to rewrite its rulebook mid-era. Park Avenue administrators privately compare the Loving situation to the legendary era of Deacon Jones, whose famous head-dazing head slap was so brutally disorienting to offensive tackles that the league was forced to ban the move entirely in 1979 to prevent long-term neurological trauma. League historians in the room drew further parallels to Ndamukong Suh's early career rampage, when his borderline illegal post-whistle aggression and targeted strikes prompted mandatory league-wide memos and unprecedented disciplinary fines aimed at curbing his violent edge. Even more recently, the league pointed to the enforcement shifts surrounding execution of the hip-drop tackle and helmet-first crown strikes, emphasizing that when a defender's physical techniques consistently leave opponents injured or biomechanically defenseless, the NFL has a structural duty to intervene before catastrophic damage occurs. The threat hanging over Chicago isn't just a standard fine, it is a full-scale institutional effort to neuter Loving's aggressive playstyle before it takes root across the league. As word of the league office's impending hammer leaked through sports media channels, the threat of a fine and a Week 1 suspension threw the entire Bears organization into a high-stakes standoff with Park Avenue. NFL head of officiating representatives leaked to beat writers that on-field crew chiefs assigned to Chicago's opener have been briefed on Loving's specific jersey number and key hand strike mechanics. Referees will be under strict instructions to throw immediate flags for any illegal contact originating near the neck or face frame, effectively putting Loving on a zero-tolerance policy the second he steps onto the field. The league's hardline stance aims to establish an immediate deterrent. Either Loving voluntarily tones down his explosive, violent get-off-and-pad striking style, or he will actively cost his team 15 yards per rep while burning through hundreds of thousands of dollars in game-check penalties. For a team building its entire defensive identity around unyielding toughness, Park Avenue's ultimatum has set up an explosive psychological battle, threatening to strip away Chicago's most terrifying interior weapon before he can even make his official NFL debut. If Park Avenue expected Chicago to bow to corporate pressure and quiet down their rookie phenom, they completely miscalculated the resolve inside Halas Hall. General Manager Ryan Poles and the Bears' executive staff didn't just reject the NFL's warning letters, they launched a ferocious, highly organized, legal and public relations counterattack. Drawing directly on his own background as a former offensive lineman, Poles personally spearheaded a comprehensive counter dossier, assembling a high-definition video defense that countered every single allegation submitted by rival franchises. The Bears sent back hours of biomechanical frame data, proving that Loving's club and rip mechanics originate squarely on the chest plate and shoulder pads, arguing that any high hand movement is simply the natural laws of physics result of violent upper body torque rather than intent to strike the head or neck. Furthermore, Chicago's legal counsel forcefully shut down equipment compliance rumors, producing independent laboratory certifications confirming Loving's face mask, visor, and glove materials strictly adhere to current NFL manufacturing standards. To Poles and the coaching staff, this administrative crackdown isn't a safety crusade. It is a desperate attempt by softer organizations to weaponize rulebooks because their offensive fronts are physically incapable of stopping genuine interior destruction. Instead of fracturing under the intense microscope of a league-wide investigation, the scrutiny has ignited a raging, defiant wildfire inside the Chicago locker room. Loving hasn't just been defended by his front office, he has been completely embraced as the heart and soul of an increasingly ruthless defensive unit. Veteran leaders and defensive stalwarts have publicly circled the wagons around the young star, adopting an unapologetic us against the world mentality that hasn't been felt in the Windy City in decades. In locker room interviews and post-practice pressers, players openly mock the rival coaches who submitted the complaint tape, labeling them soft and accusing the league of turning professional football into a flagged exhibition. Loving's daily battle cry has transformed him overnight into an iconic cult hero figure among the Bears faithful, who view the NFL's micro-enforcement as part of a long-standing league bias against physical, blue-collar defense. Stadium merchandise shops are already printing graphic tees featuring Loving's customized visor alongside bold, defiant slogans, embracing the narrative that if the rest of the league wants to label Chicago's defense as the villains of modern football, then they are more than happy to play the role. This total organization-wide rally has altered the emotional dynamic surrounding the team heading into the regular season. What began as a nerve-wracking administrative threat of fines and suspensions has metastasized into an explosive rallying point, uniting front office executives, coaching staff, players, and a rabid fan base behind a shared sense of persecution. Ryan Poles' aggressive defense sent a clear message straight to Park Avenue. Chicago will not voluntarily tame its most explosive playmaker to make rival coordinators feel safe in the pocket. The Bears are deliberately leaning into the hostility, turning the NFL's legal threats into pure fuel for their defensive engine. As the clock ticks down toward kickoff, the narrative has shifted entirely. Jaden Loving is no longer just a rookie trying to earn his reps. He has been transformed into a lightning rod for an entire franchise's identity, standing tall at the center of a roaring football war, completely prepared to take on the rest of the league on his own terms. As the opening kickoff approaches, the strategic landscape surrounding the game has been completely upended by the league's high-profile investigation. The immediate threat facing Chicago is no longer just the opposing offense, but the officiating crew stationed in the stadium, tasked with holding Jaden Loving under a microscopic magnifying glass from the very first snap. Referees have received explicit pre-game instructions to monitor every single hand placement, pad strike, and post-whistle contact involving the rookie defensive tackle, creating an unprecedented high-wire act for the Bears coaching staff. Head coach Ben Johnson and defensive coordinator Dennis Allen face an agonizing tactical dilemma. Do they instruct Loving to tone down his hyper-aggressive, boundary-pushing style to avoid costly 15-yard penalty flags, or do they unleash him at full speed and risk early game ejection? For Loving, adjusting his mechanics mid-stride presents a psychological trap. Holding back even a fraction of a second on his explosive get-off could strip away the very leverage and violence that make him an unstoppable force in the B-gap. The real battle will unfold inside the minds of opposing offensive linemen and coordinators who must now navigate a double-edged sword of their own creation. While rival teams successfully baited Park Avenue into launching a formal investigation, they have simultaneously turned Loving into an unpredictable psychological nightmare on the field. Guards know that any official who hesitates on a whistle will leave them exposed to Loving's devastating, unhinged hand strikes, forcing them to over-anchor early to protect against his violent bull rush. That extra split second of internal hesitation is all a generational interior rusher needs to collapse a pocket, creating massive passing lanes and isolated single coverage wins for Chicago's edge rushers on the outside. If the officiating crew calls a tight, flag-heavy game, the NFL may successfully neutralize Chicago's interior menace, but if referees let the boys play in the trenches, Loving's fueled-up anger could turn Week 1 into an absolute horror show for the opposing quarterback. This high-stakes standoff ultimately brings the entire football world to a massive crossroads, forcing every fan, analyst, and executive to confront the changing soul of the modern game. Is the NFL officiating department legitimately enforcing player safety rules to protect its stars from illegal hand violence? Or are corporate executives simply picking on the Chicago Bears because a relentless rookie is exposing soft offensive lines and making a mockery of modern protection schemes? Jaden Loving has pushed the physical limits of the modern rulebook further than any defensive rookie in recent memory, turning his very presence on the field into a lightning rod for the sport's ongoing ideological war. Now, as the game clock ticks down and the stadium lights hit the field, only one truth remains clear. Whether he ends up flagged, fined, suspended, or enshrined as an unstoppable defensive icon, Jaden Loving has officially changed how football in the trenches will be played forever.